Sometimes, every now and then, I can start off with a fragrance on the wrong foot, and then eventually, over time, I like it. In fact, in extreme cases, I can love it. The best example in my collection is Royal Oud, which when I first smelt it, I never even dreamed that I would have a full bottle of it in my collection, I can tell you. It's not like I'd just thrown black peppercorns all over myself. But over time, gradually, I liked it, admired it, enjoyed it, contextualized it, and then fell in love with it. And it's now one of my favourite niche fragrances and probably my second favourite creed of all time. The lesson of that story is be open-minded when you don't initially like something. So Chris showed me this fragrance last year, and I remember really not liking it, and I thought, well, everybody seems to like it, everybody seems to enjoy it. And then Escentual, who I did a video in collaboration with the Mont Blanc Explorer fragrance, said to me, there's 3 fragrances that we have a budget on right now, would you like to check them out? One of them was Vulgari Glacial Essence, which I like as a very, very basic fragrance. The other is Toy Boy, which I'll be doing another informational video about that in association with Escentual. And the third one was this. And so, full disclosure, I got this one for free by Escentual. And so I thought, okay, let's do it. Let's give it a full whirl, a full wearing. I've had this for about 3 weeks now, and I've worn it now and then. I have tried to recontextualize it. I've tried to see it for what it is, and I've tried to see ultimately what everybody likes in it, because a lot of people do like this, and you watching right now, if you've never smelt this, you've got to keep that in mind. And there are people who really, really enjoy this, and you must seek them out for varying opinions. But as for my opinion, unfortunately, it has stayed the same. I think that this is a bloody awful fragrance. There's many reasons why, which I will get into, but I think that it's quite lazy, and there's certain things about it that, even in the sort of the technicalities of it, are lazy. There's problems that come up in this fragrance that are very easy to deal with. I'll get to that in the scent. But yeah, this is pretty bloody awful, and I actually had to double check because I thought it was like Ultramal EDP, because this reminds me quite a bit of Ultramal. Not completely, but in the same way as it's got that very icing, sugary, over-the-top, cheap female designer fragrance. In fact, this ultimately reminds me of a weird clone of Prada Candy. So I'm not only not impressed, I'm actually the other way, where I heavily dislike this fragrance, and I don't think that it's worth your time, personally, especially if you're looking for a solid designer, a solid sweet designer as well. There's many different alternatives out there for you. But let's continue with the straightforward review format. So first, we always come to the presentation, and the presentation of this bottle is, it's a Le Male bottle, but it's in black and a very, very dark grey with a gold top. I think it's okay, but I think that the gold with this black, I just think that it looks corny. There's been a case recently with many fragrance houses taking already established bottle designs and then using them for their new cheap fragrance houses. The reason being is that to create and to design a bespoke bottle design is actually one of the more expensive parts of the fragrance manufacturing. In fact, it can often be more expensive than creating the fragrance itself. Sometimes, not always, of course. And this feels as though another startup brand just copied the Le Male bottle design, and so whatever, it's basic, it's simple, but I actually really find the gold with the black quite tacky and quite bling-y and a little bit chavvy as well. So yeah, bottle design for me would be, even though it's a Le Male bottle, and of course the bottle design is iconic and lovely and wonderful, I don't like the colour concept. I don't like it. But I'd be happy to give it a 3 out of 5. But then we get to the scent, and I try to be more professional and more cool when it comes to fragrances I really don't like. I've hope that I've evolved from throwing fragrances into dirty bathtubs. But I'm trying my darndest to just kind of keep a level head here. But I will divulge some things, and that is this. When you put this on, it's a very plasticky, icing sugary smell that is superficially very feminine and has a lot of reminiscent of very, very mainstream party female fragrances, such as the number one being Prada Candy. And it is so plastic and rubbery that it's really off-putting, and I don't like that at all. But the thing that gets me is there's ways around that. That's a classic fragrance problem when you're working with very synthetic, floral, sweet notes or aroma chemicals. It's a classic problem, and it's been a problem for fragrance houses that have far less resources than Jean Paul Gaultier. The number one that I can think of is Thallium, the blue one. That's very skanky and sweet, and they don't have probably even half the budget that Jean Paul Gaultier have. They don't have any of the resources, and because of that, unfortunately, their fragrances smell very sweet, very cloying, and it has this plasticky texture thing that's going on, and they may not have the resources, the ability to deal with that. But when you have Jean Paul Gaultier and you've got a fragrance like this, you probably do. And the solution is very simple. There's a number of different aroma chemicals that you could put in, namely blackwood is one of them. That's quite a woody, musky aroma chemical that is in a lot of male designer fragrances, a dime a dozen. And you just put a healthy amount of that in there, in this fragrance, and you get rid of that soapy icing, pink icing sugar crap out of this in an instant, but they didn't do that. So there's a problem here. There's a classic sweet designer fragrance problem that has a very straightforward solution, and it's not been done. It's like seeing Einstein getting a basic times table wrong or a very basic equation wrong, and that really irks me on a technical basis. But I don't want to completely just throw sort of nerdy fragrance shit at you. I also think that it doesn't smell good. I don't think it suits. I think it's dated as hell. And when you've got all these other great fragrances that are coming out, there's not too many classics coming out right now, admittedly. Of course, we all know the struggle of that. But this is, I think, an L for Jean Paul Gaultier. It's out of date. It's overly sweet when it doesn't have to be. There's no depth. There's nothing interesting anymore with these lamelles. This is sweet, top heavy, synthetic. Nothing smells real. Nothing smells natural. Nothing smells as though there's been sort of like any effort put into it, or any money put into it, or not too much thought put into it. There's really silly, sloppy mistakes. There is some blending, but it's just more like a mush and a mess rather than notes kind of fielded together to create a composition that sort of bounces. I'm talking about basic perfumery, right? I'm talking about simple, straightforward perfumery that everybody knows, everybody should understand, and there isn't enough of that in here. And so that sucks, and that's just inexcusable. Like I said, many people seem to like it. I know Chris really likes it. There's quite a few people. And so, those questions go into your head. Am I missing something? I'm not quite getting it. But I've been with this thing for 3 weeks, pretty rigorously, and it's a caramelly, syrupy, pink, candy-ish glob of crap. And it's getting a 1 out of 5. In fact, no, you know what? That's generous. I'll give it a 0.5 out of 5, scent-wise. I think this is absolute trash, to be honest with you. Projection and longevity is mediocre. It's fine. It's lighter than you'd expect, especially with it being such a loud fragrance in composition. But it's like loud static, or the sound of the orchestra tuning up and it's all sort of a bit chaotic. That's what this is like. So you'd think that it would be brilliant with projection, but it's not. It's about, I don't know, yeah, projection's good for the first 2 to 3 hours, and then it slowly reclines in. Projection is probably about 4 out of 5. Longevity is the weirdest. It's the most disappointing, because after about 6 or 7 hours, I'm barely smelling this, and I just thought that it would be a lot more and a lot more striking and a lot more strong. But all in all, usually it's about 8 hours, and 8 hours is okay. You know, it's good. It depends on what it is, but for something like this, that is below par. But yeah, 3 out of 5. You're not buying this for the projection. You're not buying this for the longevity. You're not buying this necessarily for the presentation. You're buying this for the scent. I can think of 3 fragrances that are a million times better than this. The first one is 1 Million Privé, which has that sweetness, but it also has tobacco, which really softens it out. Again, just give it something, just anything to just calm it down, to calm that sweetness down. It's too much, and to sort of contextualize it and to sync it up with all of the other elements. Yeah, Privé's a beast, and it gives you that good syrupy caramel-like punch. But it's done well. It's the blending is fantastic. The tobacco and elements of leather and bits of fruit, just wonderful. Blows this out of the water. And yeah, I'd recommend 1 Million Privé if you really want your kicks when it comes to sweetness. Strong review, Intensely by Emporio Armani. That's if you want to go really up a gear. But when it comes to, you just want a good Le Male flanker. I know I'm not the biggest fan of Ultra Male either. Just try and buy the original Le Male if you want to get that. But if you want that, I don't know, that lavender thing, the aromatic sweetness thing that's in here. If you can get Pure Tonka, get Pure Tonka. If you can get Rochasman, get Rochasman. Then those would be my 3 recommendations for you. But as for this, no, it's awful. It gets nicer in the dry down, 3 or 4 hours later. But it's like a slight improvement. It's a decent improvement, but it's not enough. I'm not buying a fragrance and waiting and putting it on and waiting 4 hours for something that's like decent, when I can just use my money to buy a fragrance that's just going to do the whole thing for me. So yeah, this is pretty terrible, and overall I'm going to give it a 1.5 out of 5 overall. Yeah, it's not good in my opinion, but that is my opinion, and please, take it for what you will. But there are people who do like it, and before you're making your final decision on this, especially if you're considering blind buying it or you haven't been able to test it because of the situation that we're in, seek out other opinions. Seek out people who like it. Seek out people who really enjoy it, and make your own decision from there. But as far as my one opinion is concerned, it's trash. Right, thanks. Hope I don't get too lynched in the comments, but we'll see. I'm the Fragrance Price. Thanks very much for watching. I'll speak to you soon. Bye.